Now, relief for South Africa as Russian President Vladimir Putin agrees to not attend the Brics Summit next month. South Africa was under pressure to arrest him due to a warrant of arrest by the International Criminal Court. Now, the Russian Federation will be represented by its Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. Now, let's discuss this further, of course, with international relations expert, Professor Siphamandla Zondi. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining me this afternoon. Of course, news just in that the Russian president will not be attending the Brics Summit. What do you make of this?
Completely expected. It's been a scenario placed before us for a while now that to avoid putting South Africa in an awkward position where it will be forced to arrest, but it won't be able to arrest, because to arrest the sitting president in the case of Russia would be to declare a war against Russia. And then President Putin has decided not to come, but to send a Minister of Foreign Affairs, which is very common. And many summits presidents do send ministers when they are unable to come, and it's definitely unable to come because it would be bad for South Africa to have to be in an awkward position it would have been put in had he come.
Let's talk about this. It seems to be just, another case where we see politics and law meet and clash. Some would even call it a political law nexus. Maybe your take on this?
Yes, it is. In this particular case, it's actually a law-peace interface as well, in the sense that there are times when instruments of justice are not used because they might interfere with the possibility of building a peace process. That was the case with al-Bashir earlier, that there was fear across the continent that if you charge al-Bashir or put him in a situation where he has to be charged, then you are forcing him to hold on to the position at all costs, and therefore you are undermining the peace process in Sudan. It's similar in this case, given the fact that the African position is that there must be a peaceful settlement in all these situations, and the arrest warrant is seen as inimical to a possibility of having dialogue and peaceful end to that atrocious war in Ukraine. And indeed, of course, it's a political matter that is now being also handled through instruments of international. It's a maze. It's a complexity, and in the end, it will resolve itself on political ground. It seems to me, a lot more than other grounds.
And then let's maybe just, again, talk about the DA's application. Of course, you're wanting President Putin arrested as soon as he touches base here in South Africa, which, of course, we now know will not be happening. But let's just, talk about that application a bit as well, because many would say that, there's a bit of lack in their application and that, it lacks quality. Would you agree with that? And is this whole situation a bit premature, even though we know the president is not coming to South Africa? But in your opinion?
Yes, of course, the Democratic Alliance is an important alternative party in the South African system, and it is its role, actually constitutional role, to hold the governing party to account. And it can use any means, including the courts of law and all of that. It will be okay. But in doing so, I would say for political reasons, it has to exercise very prudent political thinking about it and calculated costs. There are over thousands of issues it would take the government to court over to force it to implement it, including the provision of water, including the provision of food, many issues that attract the poor in South Africa in order to project itself as a friend of the poor. But on this particular case, it's taken to take up this issue. There are many other controversial positions in South Africa's foreign policy, but it's taken this one a bit too much, in my view. It has visited Ukraine. It has made thousands of statements about it. It's done all of those kind of things. It has made us think about it and whether it is conveying a comprehensive message about its foreign policy outlook, or it is simply picking up one issue and make it a full definition of its foreign policy. Now, with this decision, then its court case has become pretty much redundant. It's no longer necessary. But it was helpful in getting us to get the president to explain himself about the conditions they're facing. The most important one was the fact that the Russians had indicated, which were not surprised, that the arrest of their president is seen as a tantamount to a declaration of war. In the same way that the United States had said that the arrest of any American citizen by the ICC would be a declaration of war. So these big powers really like this idea of declaration of war, using war and might in order to resolve their political questions.
Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us this afternoon, just giving your insights there into this matter. Of course, as we now know, Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending the Brics Summit here in South Africa. That news just became known to us, of course, a short while ago. Thank you, Siphamandla Zondi, Professor International Relations expert and Director of the Institute for Pan-African Thoughts and Conversation at the University of Johannesburg, for that conversation.